Hello and welcome back to Mirrors Signal Podcast, your weekly podcast sponsored by Knowledgeably Instructor Training, award-winning CPD providers. Stay tuned to the episode to get your discount code provided by Knowledgeable. Today's episode, we are joined by Vicky and Kim from Gates and Gibson Business Management and Tom Stenson, Audit Trainer, who have now all teamed up to form Drive Up Training. Today's episode, they talk about their offering, whether you're new to the industry, a PDI, or an ADI looking for your next steps in development. And later on in the episode, we talk about making a change within the industry and how we can do that and maybe where we can start or how. So a really interesting episode, hearing what they're offering and just their goals and what maybe we can be doing as individuals or how we can develop. So make sure that if you're enjoying these episodes, you hit subscribe or follow wherever you're listening or watching. If you've got any questions for me, you can find me on the Facebook page or the Facebook group at Mirrors Signal Podcast, or just reach out in the comments and I will get back to you. So for now, we will get on with the episode. I hope you all enjoy. Right, welcome, Drive Up Training. Something new to the industry. I love what you guys have been putting out already. So let's get straight in. I'm not going to direct this to anyone, so I'll let you guys shout amongst yourselves. But Drive Up Training, where's it come from? What is it?
Vicky. That's why I was looking down. So obviously, people will know Kim and I as Gates and Gibson Business Management Support. And, you know, a little story, we met Mr. Stenson some time ago and we kind of like hit it off, I suppose. And since then, we've just got, work-wise, just got closer and closer and closer. And we just decided one day, look, do you know what? Certain things need to change. So where the business came in with Kim and I, it's, as we've said before, it's very undervalued. It's not really spoken about. But I mean, Gates and Gibson have been going for a couple of years now, and it's like people are now talking about it. So change has started. So that's a win on its own. And then merging with Tom merging with us, the combination of training, development, and business, the three brains in that one pot. It's like wicked. It's like that cauldron, isn't it? That little mix pot. And it's to make a difference within the industry, having fantastic instructors, fantastic trainers, support from the beginning to the end, but the end is never the end. Even when we think the end's there, it's the beginning. And having the 5-year development program for ADIs to continue the development, and in return making the road safer. Thanks, Tom.
I'll put my piece in as well, then, I suppose. And
go for it.
Yeah, like Vicky said there, it's kind of embarrassing a little bit because I have to deal with so many trainees and instructors who have had a rough time. And, you know, there are lots of good driving schools out there. And what we're not trying to necessarily do is be the biggest because, you know, that's very difficult to do. But we do want to try and make a difference, and we want to make a difference at the start with trainees, but also we want to encourage more development. As we were sort of saying before we hit record, that our industry sort of likes this thing where qualifying part 3 is sort of the top rung of the ladder. And I don't believe that. I think it's the first rung on the ladder. You've qualified, but there is a whole other level that goes above it. And our industry isn't just about teaching learners how to pass a test. In fact, it's actually taking learners to make sure they don't crash and kill themselves and other people, within the next 2 years or 5 years or however long. But also it's trying to create better instructors that can make a difference on the road. And we've got to try and get them early enough to do that, but also keep that development going. So having something from our perspective, which has got business, it's got training, it's got our experience, to try and put it together into one company, I do truly think that it is going to help some people, not everyone, but I do think it's going to help some people.
I think if every instructor was totally honest with themselves, the day they pass their part 3 to the knowledge they would have a year, 5 years down the line as an instructor would be completely different. So we learn and we grow so much over that period of time. And that even instructors that don't take any sort of CPD or any sort of further training after their part 3 are learning every day as they're teaching. So with us having a development program that enables them to follow steps to help them develop, also offering CPD along the way, it just gives them a path to follow through rather than just kind of being left on the open road and not really knowing where to get that training and what the next steps are and where they can go and how they can develop, how they can improve as an instructor daily.
Mm-hmm. Some really interesting points there. And I love what yous have done, and we will come on to it shortly, I guess. But let's go back a step. So we know that you've got your plan for after part 3, but how does training look? So anyone watching this that's maybe like doing their research and who do I want to work with? Who do I want to receive training of? What does that look like from you guys, from picking up the phone? I want to be a driving instructor. What can you offer me?
I suppose to a certain degree, we are offering similar to what other people offer in regards to training. We have tried as much as we can to put road safety at the heart of this. It's not just about getting people through sort of qualification process. So we would offer the same kind of package, I suppose. So we're offering part 1 training, part 2 training, part 3 training, and I hate those terms, but I'm going to use them because everybody knows what they are. So I don't want to overcomplicate it. But we want to try and add more of a personal touch. We want to add the business management side, which doesn't often get included in those 3 stages, and that's where Vicky and Kim come in. Because we want people to understand how that is going to benefit them along the journey to becoming the best that they can be. I'm quite lucky because I had businesses and I was self-employed before becoming a driving instructor, so I'd already got a reasonable knowledge. That doesn't mean I haven't made mistakes. But part of our training package as well is including additional training on top of what's normally advertised. When trainees come to us for a trainee license, let's say, and this isn't the only option, and we've had you in mind with that as well, Josh, because I know that you didn't go down the trainee license route. So for us, it's giving the trainees what they need. If we're promoting to be client-centered, we should be doing it ourselves and not forcing everyone down that route. If people do go on a trainee license, we want to offer them a huge sort of advantage on that. So we include things like access to ADI NJC. We give them access to the Honest Truth, which I'm a huge advocate for. We'll give them access to additional things like PIPL insurance, which all instructors again should have. And all of this is included in what we're hoping to be a good package for people.
I think that's really important what you've just said there, because a lot of things that were mentioned, because I went off on my own, I don't know whether it's the reason or whether the training that I did receive, because I did get 40 hours intensive, but there were a lot of things that I wasn't aware of, like associations, no idea. The public indemnity and public liability insurance, again, I was running a business and I'm pretty sure I didn't have the full insurance that I needed until I joined the ADI NJC. But all of these things, I can see how they can get overlooked when you're just focused on, right, we've got to do 40 hours in car and get you on a pink license as soon as possible. So it's like, this is how you teach, this is how you teach this. Whatever that structure is, that becomes the focus of the training. So I expect it's the focus of the trainee as well. It's like, well, all I need to think about is this next lesson plan, this next driving lesson, without thinking, well, I'm going to be running a business and there may be some things that I need to put in place to manage a business. So I think that's going to be a benefit for anyone who's looking for, who do I go with? Where do I go? It's like, it's that big picture. It's not just this is how you teach a lesson. It's safer roads, like you said, with the honest truth, the relevant insurance, being introduced to an association and understanding what support there is for driving instructors. I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.
So we.
I think one of the things following on from what Tom was saying is it's that rabbit hole of okay, you do your part 1, you do your part 2, do your 40 hours, apply for the trainee license, and the other option is kind of like never discussed. So one of the things for us looking at everything was it's about giving someone choice and not withholding information. I mean, anybody can give us a call. We're not going to draw up papers and expect you to sign there and then over the telephone. But for anyone to ring, have a chat, discuss what their options are, you know, if they join us, great. If they don't, it's just an information they want to know. We're happy to have a chat with them, let them know, you know, well, you could do this or you could do that. You could go here, you could go there. And it's about that person having the choice. Because people that join us, we'll interview them as much as we hope they will interview us. And it's about us being right for them and them being right for us. It's not just that, no pun intended, but it's not that one-way street in any shape or form. So giving people options.
I think that's really important for people at the early stage looking for who's going to provide their training is exactly that. Interview the people that you're talking to. Who is it? Is that the person that's going to be doing the training? Is that the person that's going to be answering all of the questions that you've got? Or is it a salesperson that has got their interests, not yours? So I like that. And I think it's what people need to be aware of, because you see it all the time. It must be weekly on socials. How do I get out of this contract that I've signed? So it's a business contract. It's going to be very difficult, but I'm not business minded, so I'm going to not say much more on that. But I'm yet to find many people that have managed to get out of a contract. And unfortunately, it's normally a little bit too late when they realize, because they've signed it, they've had X amount of hours, so they've had the training. So that's a really important message that you've said there, is have that chat, interview that person. And I like what you've said there, that it's about fitting both ways. It's not just, you take anyone and you'll put them on a PDI license and promise them the world. It's like, let's make sure it's going to be right for all parties.
And one of the standing things that's always come up in our conversations when we were planning this was, we don't want to tie people in. We want people to stay with us because we're good for them. And I think the moment that you tie people in, it sort of restricts them. They feel like, I want to get out. We want people to have that option. If we're not helping you and you're not helping us, well then, you know, that's not good for our business and it's not good for yours either.
That'd be good for the brand when you've got someone as part of a brand that doesn't want to be part of it. It's it's not good for anyone. So moving on, we've got the package, the trainee package, the qualifying, and the information from you guys, which is coming from a lot of experience. I know when I was speaking to Kim and Vicky about filming with you two on the business side of things, we've taken a turn now, but oh well, I'll go with it. I had loads of time to plan for it, so that's fine. Sorry. But I think if we look past the qualifying, where's that come from and why that?
I suppose part of that comes from the work that I do with trainees and instructors, is seeing that, again, as we mentioned earlier, people see that part 3 as that's it, and it isn't, and I don't think it should be. And I remember when I qualified, it took me to fail my standards check to realise that actually I needed to pull my finger out and I wasn't a good instructor and I need to do something about it. And every day since doing that has been an integral part of where I am at the moment. And I still don't see myself at the top of the ladder. Hence why I'm doing my diploma with Bright Coaching at the moment, because I want to keep learning and I want to push myself and develop myself. And I think if we want to lead by example, we need to have something that's different in the industry to go, actually, if you want to be the best you can be, this is what we're going to try and offer you. And we're going to hold your hand on the whole of that process to try and make you as good as you can be. I know some trainers say that, you know, in order to become a trainer, you've got to get 10, 15 years of experience. I don't necessarily believe that. I think if you get quality, actually within a 5-year period, you could probably become a very good instructor and you could probably become a pretty good trainer.
There's experience, like you said, and then there's quality. And someone who's done the same thing for 15 years and stood still is well, they're no further ahead than they was on day one for the most part. So what does this? So it was it the ADI development program? Is that what it's called that you are offering for the 5 years? What's that? How does that look? And who can join you on this journey?
Kim?
Anybody. Not anybody. Like Vicky mentioned earlier, there's like an interview process. We do want to interview to make sure that you're right for us and we're right for you. We don't want to just take you on and, you know, not be able to support you if you're completely away from us and we can't help and guide you. So yeah, there is an interview process. But hopefully, if you're already reaching out to be a part of us, you already want to achieve and develop, that actually then we will guide you. We will offer you the support to get the training you need to develop. And if that's the case, then you probably are a good fit for what we're looking for, which is making the road safer and making better ADIs on the road. So you're already in the first, by making that first call, you're already showing that you kind of want to make that step forwards.
Or make that change.
That change, yeah.
So you may be an ADI that's toodled along after qualifying for 12 months, for 5 years, and go, actually, do you know what? I've done nothing in the last 5 years. My standards check hasn't come through. Jumped on a workshop here and there, been to the odd convention, expo, whatever. Maybe it's now time to switch up what I actually do, because it can become quite mundane. Get up, go to work, teach, come back, done. Get up, go to work, teach, come back, done. And as we know, we get up, go to work, teach, come back, we're not done because of everything else we do. But I think, if it's somebody that wherever you are in your ADI path, even if you've been an ADI for 15 years and you you want to make that change. You want to push yourself further now. Some will, some won't. Then I think some people, because they're like, well, I've been an ADI for 5 years now, you know, I'm not going to change. Well, just have a think about it. It's nothing to it, because it could, like, pride can get in people's way. Well, I can't really show that I've not done anything for the last 5 years. Might feel quite embarrassed. And don't be embarrassed. What's important is you've picked up the phone to us and said, look, hey guys, I've seen what you've got on the table. I'm just ringing to have a chat about it and how you can help me. Then we'll have a chat. There's no commitment. You just want to have a conversation and know some more, and we'll happily provide the answers. So yeah, I think just pick up the phone to us, have that informal chat.
Can I add to that? I think if you think about the fact that we all have to do the criminal record check, CRBs, your CRB is only valid the day it's printed. The following day you could go out, commit a crime, and your CRB is no longer valid. When we become driving instructors, our pass on our part 3 is only valid on that day until you take the standards check and get reassessed. During that period of time, it doesn't mean you're a great instructor. And even some people can perform stage, I suppose you could say, their part 3 test. I don't know how, but you know, there are probably ways of going about it that, you know, you could pass on that day, but then the next week, it doesn't mean you're still a great instructor. So that's why, you know, reaching out, getting continual support, joining a team of people that want to help and want to work together, you know, it gives you the opportunity to develop and still continue to be that great instructor that you was, hopefully, on the day you passed part 3. And then there's silence.
I was going to let Tom have a go. He's just sat there. He's like, so I'm going to delve into this a little bit because I love the stance of that and the development and the fact that it's open to ADIs. And I think this, because I've seen on socials what it is you're offering, and I think this is a good kind of progressive way to kickstart that CPD. So why don't we talk about that a little bit? What the 5 years looks like for an ADI that wants to come along and join you guys?
Well, I suppose it does kind of start before that. You know, there's lots of trainers in the industry who don't think the qualification process, myself included, is the best it could be. Unfortunately, it's what we've got at the moment, and I don't know whether that's going to change anytime soon. So trying to do something now, I think, is what we're aiming to do. Now, like we kind of do with learners, you can't get an advanced learner for the majority of the time. You've got to give them the basics. So this is why we've kind of got these stepping stones to becoming a better instructor. So we've looked at some of the qualifications we've got, some that we think are integral for our industry, and that's why we've put this sort of 5-year package together. So the first step is to, within the first 12 months of somebody joining us, we want to give them a better quality of training for their driving, because we know that once you pass part 2, your driving is never assessed. And we don't think that's good enough. So we think the better drivers you are, the better the standard of driving can be. I'm not saying that's a guarantee, but I think there is a correlation there. So we want to train and put people through either ROSPA or IM or both. So within that 12 months, we're hoping that our instructors will all have advanced driving qualifications. And part of that, if you're with ROSPA, you have to do those every 3 years. We would expect instructors to be doing that. So that means that we know their standard of driving is going to be up. Within the second year, we want people to, and we'll pay and support them through their level 3 in coaching and mentoring, which we know how important coaching is in the industry. It isn't included enough in the training, and we recognise that. And so we want to give people more opportunities to develop in that area. We also understand that just teaching learners isn't the only way that you can go with what we do as driving instructors. If you go and do fleet or things like that, lots of companies would expect you to have some sort of teaching qualification. So in year 3, we will pay for and support people through their level 3 in education and training, which used to be a PETALS. So again, that's sort of the entry level that we would expect for people to do. And then through year 4 is about getting them to really put additional development into their lessons. So we'll then pay for them and support them through their diploma in coaching and behavioural change, which is done by Bright Coaching, because again, we feel that behavioural change is a big part as well as coaching. So if we can give a rounded package for people, they're going to be, within 4 years, far more qualified than I ever was in my 10 years of being a driving instructor. And I'm still working at that now in my 13, 14 years of doing it.
There's some great stuff there. And I think if we was to sit down and be honest about what is, and I expect you guys have done this, what is required to be a driving instructor, I think the things that we would be to write down wouldn't be the current system. And it'd be something probably more aligned to what you guys are now offering as part of your school. Because why aren't we required to have some kind of teaching qualification to be a driving instructor? Because it's a little more risky than teaching a bunch of children in a classroom, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it sort of just stems from how our industry has been perceived by members of the public. You know, we've all kind of heard it where they've said, you know, you don't learn to drive until you've passed your test. I think that's just a ridiculous thing to say. And, you know, or parents might say, well, I tell you what, can you just teach them the basics and then I'll do the rest? And I think, oh, well, I'm glad I spent these thousands of pounds over the last 13 years to get as qualified as I am to just teach somebody the basics. And we've got to change people's perspective of what we do on as driving instructors, because my view is we should be seen as road safety professionals and we're not. And I think the current system doesn't allow us to do that. Where if we are gaining a much better understanding of what we do in a job and what potentials we've got as instructors to make a difference with young people and not so young people after they pass their test, why are we not doing this? Because we've all got a responsibility.
How do we change the perception of our industry?
I think that's a hard one. There are people that want to learn, develop, and change. And I think for those, you know, there'd be the people that potentially could call us or, you know, look at some of our posts, go into these training courses themselves. But there are people that are within the industry, unfortunately, that have no interest in road safety. They have no interest in development, in their own skills and the service that they deliver and the lessons that they deliver. So it's a hard one because unfortunately the people that we are reaching out to and we are connecting with are the people that are the instructors that want the best for the roads. It's the other people that we need to find and we need to reach out to.
And I think you've got this knock-on effect as well, where if you imagine your son or daughter comes home and just talks about their driving lesson and says, oh yeah, I was on a lesson with Kim. She's currently doing a diploma at the moment in coaching and behavioural change. And, you know, if a parent just thinks, why on earth are they doing that? What's that got to do with driving? That might just change their perception on what it is we're trying to do as instructors. You know, we're still known for getting somebody to pass a test. Do a load of test routes, you know, you'll be fine, and then you learn to drive after. Nah, sorry. You know, we should be creating and helping create thinking drivers who are less likely to go and crash in the first 6 months of passing their test. So encouraging our instructors to do better than best practice, like make better working relationships with parents, and explain to them and send them, videos like the Drive Fit videos that were done by the RSE Foundation and Liz Box, where it's designed for learners and for parents to go, actually, there's a big issue here and we need to be addressing it. And if we don't start to do that as instructors, it's I think it's going to take a long time for the system to change, although it's going to take a long time anyway. But if we don't try something, nothing will work, will it?
What I'd like to add to that is I think a lot of these areas that we are trying to change come from very old school systems, and shaking it off is like having the flu and COVID and every other bug possible in your system all at the same time. There are, as we know, there's instructors out there that will teach for test. There's instructors out there that will, train the learner and great standard. Test doesn't even come into the vocabulary. We just go, we do it, all good. And through what I read on social is that, yes, there's two sides to every story, but you're hearing stories of audit and non-audit trainers training for test. Go figure. So I think we need to rewind to the beginning. If you've got that person from Raw and we train them through, they will know no different. They will know what being the best of the best is. They will know I'm not going to train you to pass your part 2, to pass your part 3. We're going to train you of this standard. We're going to teach you coaching, all this kind of stuff. So when they then go to their learners, they're going to train that person to a very high standard without even kind of thinking about how's it going to be on test, because that will just happen and that pass will happen. And it goes back to all that behavioral change stuff again, where the change has got to start within. We're saying, oh, we know this is, what the public think of us and this is what other schools think, or etc. But then change it. Don't fear the change, because that can't get any worse. And then, Tom, I tell you, you end up picking up trainees, and we see it all the time. I'm on my last attempt. Can you help? When's your test? 3 weeks. Okay. And your trainer is who? Where are you based? You go through all them type of questions. It's like, and they expect this almighty miracle. You can only try your best with the time that they've got, because it's make or break if it's the last attempt. That's like, if we're lucky that they actually even get, well, if they don't pass the first or second attempt, they actually get that third attempt in time before the 2 years are up, because that's something else as well. But it's that whole perception. So I was just jotting some notes down as Tom was talking. It's getting to the individual sooner rather than later. And we said this within the business side as well. Coming to someone that, we've been working with sort of instructors, clients, however you want to term it, across the UK and from up north to down south. And everyone's story is different. What they all needed support in was different. And some just need a sounding board because they're completely sort of independent. And we kind of think that the earlier they're trained in their business, when it comes to the crunch, it kind of should be a breeze. It's like the franchise, that's kind of, for some reason, that's stuck in a mold of, well, if I pay you that £99 a week, can you give me students? Huh? Like, what it's still the forefront. Franchise is about, I pay you a franchise fee. That means you give me students. Okay, is there anything else that we could give you? We'll help you. This is your business. We'll support it. We'll get you some work. You get yourself some work. But what we will also give you is a lot more. I think we said before, when we've spoken before, about someone said, well, what's a good franchise then? What's a good price for a franchise? One you get value for money for. So if it's 50 quid and you feel you're getting value for that, then it's a great franchise. If you're paying £200, £250 a week, and if you feel you're getting value for that, then it's a good franchise. So it's all about the value for the money.
I love something that you said there. I'm going to jump in and we can discuss this for a minute.
Cool.
And that was, I think it was, don't fear the change, like change it.
Yeah.
And I feel this is where we're stuck at the minute, because I get to talk to loads of great people, and the kind of people I get to talk to want change. And like what you guys are doing, it's like, well, let's be that change. Let's go and do it. And you can see it kind of changing. There's more things popping up. There's more people. They're not all doing exactly the same, but people are like, I'm going to change it. And I'm going to change it for the interest of trainees coming in and for the interest of learners on the road and what we're putting post-test on the road. I think this mindset of the DVSA need to do something. The DVSA are rubbish. I'm going to blame the DVSA. I did think that at one stage. I was like, the DVSA need to change it. And now I'm a bit like, well, wouldn't it be an easier process if we had, as an industry, had solutions and was like, look, DVSA, you've got to employ this model or this model or this model. Just do something above minimum standards. And guess what? We've done the legwork for you. Let's force change, because I think it's the only way it can happen. They're not our employers. They're not our managers. They're not our bosses. They just administer tests. So we can't wait for them to be the change. It's got to come from driving instructors.
We are the change.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to move away from seeing DVSA as this higher force. You know, we should be, no disrespect, looking down on them and going, okay, they're there for a reason. They deliver tests sometimes. They deliver tests, but like you say, we're there to try and go, okay, we want change. Let's do something. How many times do we see it on social media where people are complaining about waiting times or things like this, or this not happening and that not happening? And you know, I always kind of envisage it's a bit like when you're at a football game and, you know, there's somebody sat on the sideline shouting at the player and you think, well, hang on, you're not running around for 90 minutes. You're sat there with a beer and a pie. So, you know, if you want to do something, you've got to get up and do it. And I don't think we should be waiting for DVSA. We should be doing like what we're doing and what you're doing with part one. You know, if we don't try it now, it may work, it may not work. But I think we owe it to ourselves and the industry to try and do something about it.
How do you take that first step? We can either, well, we've spoke about obviously your school, but taking that first step, there may be driving instructors that are listening to this and it's like, okay, what do I do? How do I be that change? What are some things that you think an individual driving instructor could look to do?
Good question. I mean, for us, where it kind of started was conversations of, we're sick of what's going on at the moment. You know, I'm really embarrassed to say that quite a lot of my work is remedial training. People coming along from, like Vicky said, you know, I got my last part 3 in 3 weeks. Can you help me? And I think, well, why have you why have you not received the training that you can have? And then I hear stories of their trainers, and sometimes, again, embarrassing to say, their audit trainer has spent 4 out of 5 hours in a cafe talking about, what their kids were doing at the weekend instead of actually delivering quality training. And so that's where it started for us. And I think we've got to get away from this failure mentality as instructors and go, well, I'm going to try something. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, I'll try something else. Because don't we adapt all the time on every single lesson? Isn't that what we're trained to do? But yet when it comes to this side of it, we go, we just sit there and moan.
I love that. Just try something, have those conversations and look to make change. And I'm seeing it a lot more now. I feel some of the things I'm doing, and it's like, well, worst case, I'm back to delivering driving lessons. Like, I try something. The worst outcome is I'm back doing the same thing. But whatever you decide to do, you will learn in the process. You will learn something and you will develop somewhere. And this podcast has been a great example for me. A random idea. I'm going to do something because I was seeing on socials the struggles that people were having. And I'm like, I don't know anyone. I can't do anything, but I can upload some videos to YouTube. And then a few hours later, I'm starting a podcast and here we are now. But taking that first step, I guess, and just looking at what we're complaining about. Can we change it? If you can, try and find a way to do it. If you can't, look for something else that you can change.
And what's the worst that can happen? It doesn't work and you learn from it, which, again, isn't that what we encourage our learners to try and do? I tell you what, Fred, give it a go. And if it goes wrong, I'm here to help you. Well, okay, that's what our industry should be like. And we shouldn't be fighting against each other. We should all be helping each other to go, I tell you what, why don't we all club together and make this a better industry? Or we could change that then. We could call it a profession instead of an industry.
I think it also starts with the PDIs in training as well. So we've mentioned like we've got a program for the ADIs, but for PDIs, I think they need to change the mentality as well of, how quickly and how cheaply can I pass these stages, these part 1, 2, and 3 tests. You're a qualified ADI when you're put on the road and you pass your part 3. You are skilled, you are delivering safer roads, a lot of responsibility lies on your heads. So I think just looking at how quickly can I do this, how cheaply can I do this, where's the cheapest option, looking at those sort of elements, you're not then going to be thinking about road safety and being the best you can be and delivering the best service and the best business, as well as making these learners have a skill for life that hopefully they're going to be safe forever with. So I think that's something that needs to change as well within the PDIs that are coming through the system, is just not looking at the cheapest option and the quickest option necessarily.
I think the thing is with this, that is, if that individual doesn't seek advice on the best way forward, which we're seeing more of on social. I want to be a driving instructor. Has anybody got any advice? Best way to do it? Where to go? I commented on a post earlier saying it's not a case you can throw on a few sentences on a comment. There's so many different details. We could sit and talk forever about part 1, 2, and 3, and everything else that comes after you qualify. You could sit there and, I'm sure the 4 of us could sit here for a whole day and we would still probably not have covered everything by the end of it. Is that they are guided the right way, but that you will still have a percentage of people that stay under the radar. They don't sort of reach out on social media. But there will come a point, as we all know, where they will have to ask, because they'll get to that stage and they won't know what to do. Like this Uber driver that I had on a phone call some months ago, and just completely oblivious to the fact I didn't have a clue what a trainee license was. So then my brain's like, it kind of threw me. So I'm like, huh? And I kind of, hold on a minute, let's rewind a little bit here. And we kind of went through it all again. But then you fast forward and it's like, we can all sit back, complain, whinge and moan when something isn't going right. And I would say exactly what I say to my kids. If something's not right for you, then the change starts within.
Mm.
Don't come to me and say, oh, mum, I've got a problem. Come to me, mum, I've got this problem. Okay. Solution. Come with a solution. And then we can bat around the ideas. Come with something. But if you don't make the change yourself, nothing will change. If you're unsure, do you need change? Because that's the other thing. There's instructors tuning along. I'm doing grand. Actually, if we were to then come in and do an analysation of their business, chances are probably about to rip it apart and completely like rebuild it. And then same with the training.
Don't analyze my business.
We're working on it. We're getting there. Getting closer.
It's that mentality, isn't it? And that is a little scary. I mean, I've had people on the show that didn't go on a PDI license, myself included, didn't have a huge amount of training from like the typical national school, do X amount of hours. I know I've had people on that haven't had a huge amount of training and have gone on and have scored well and are doing well, and I stay in touch with them occasionally. But the scary thing is that someone could come in and they just see this marketing of earn 50 grand a year, 60 grand a year. And all you've got to do is this multiple choice test. And depending on which test you get, you might not need to do any study, because it's just questions on the highway code and DES potentially, and skips all the ones that normally catch people out. Then a part two, if you're of a minimum driving standard, you'll pass a part two. And if you've got the right student on a part three, you can potentially get through without really knowing what you're doing or the most efficient way to do it. And then you're an ADI. And we could sit here, and I'm like, that system needs to change. The qualifying process has to change. But I can't change it. So all I can do is, okay, well, I've got this idea and I'm going to run with it. Exactly like what you guys have done. It's like, well, there is a problem there, but I can't rewrite that process. But what we can do is let's do it within, and just one person at a time make the difference.
And I think the more that people do that, as you mentioned earlier, there's lots of people, lots of instructors, lots of trainers out there who are doing different things. And that's what we need. You know, we shouldn't look at it as competition. We should look at it as we're all moving towards the same goal, which is to make the industry better and to improve everything for everybody, because you have that domino effect that should happen. And to be able to try and do something, even if it doesn't work, I think is a good thing. And there are lots of people out there who are doing that. And like you say, we can't change at the moment the process, but we can improve it by moving away from, we'll do your training for 900 quid, but you've got to sign a 400-year contract and never ever leave us. And then, you know, that makes unhappy instructors because they're not getting, as Vicky said, value for money. So if we can try and get a better trainee to be a good instructor and then develop them further, hopefully they're going to stand out above the rest because they'll have, you know, an abundance of experience and qualifications. And we completely understand that isn't for everybody. I know several instructors who've been doing this job for 16, 18 years, and they're happy just doing learners. They don't want to do CPD, and that's absolutely fine. I'm happy that they're content. But we don't want the content instructors, and we're not content with the way things are. So we want to do better, and we're hoping that we can encourage others to do it.
Going back to something you mentioned a moment ago, Josh, when companies are advertising, yeah, come be a driver and instructor, earn 50, 60 grand a year. I go, God, can you really earn that much? Actually, that you might find that figure will be your turnover. They go, like, what? It's your turnover. So I think sometimes the what I can make income wise, which is the other side of it, is let's have a look at the reality. So one of the conversations Kim and I had with an individual recently was to actually, we turn and say, okay, well I charge £40 an hour, just figure out the air. And people go, oh, £40 an hour? Oh, you must be quids in. You must only have to work a few hours a week, get 40 quid an hour. No, that's what the learner pays me. Doesn't mean that's what my hourly rate is. If you want to go get it on the level. And we kind of said to them, work out, what does it cost you to run your company, your business, for every hour you deliver? And we got a message saying, I've done the task. Okay. Kim's laughing. I've decided to increase my prices. Job done. And it's something so simple and very easy to do, but so many don't do it. And that is the reality of it. But yeah, I think, if you really want to know, we'll sit down and we'll run the calculations for you. And again, we've seen several posts like this over months gone by and stuff, whereby everyone's posting their calculations. Well, if you charge this, you do this amount of that. And it's about taking that all into account, because you need to know not only if you're right for the position, so to put it, but is it going to give you the income you need to support you, your family, your mortgage, your maintenance pay, whatever it might be, over and above the actual running of the business. So when you break it down, is that kind of what you want to do? We've done this with a few people recently. And one of the other things we done, it was a simple task. It was, all we done was like, okay, so let's increase your price by, I think, £3, whatever it was. And when we turned around and gave the figure of how much more per year they could make just by that diddly little increase, they're like, wow.
Enables them to take a extra lesson off their diary and have a bit more time for home, for family, for their own mental health, whatever it may be. And just then rejigging their working hours, then with that little price increase, they could probably have a better life, more valuable life.
And I think in this profession, I think mental health, I think, needs to be looked at a little bit more closely. The bar needs to be raised. Because whether you're independent or you're a franchisee, depending who you're a franchisee with, it's a lonely place. So if you're with a franchise company, he's going to be in touch with you regularly every week, even if it's a phone call. Hey, how you doing? Anything I can do for you? Anything you need? Or you've got the one that doesn't say anything for 18 months because gave you the car. What more do you want from us? You're in contract. What do you want us to do? Sit down and have a cup of tea? Well, yeah, we'll jump on Zoom, have a cup of tea on Zoom. So yeah, so it's got to be spoken about more. Being part of a team as well, I think, a team that cares as well. And it's not just, okay, we own the company, we're the directors, so we're going to employ this person to do that, this person to do that. maybe in years to come. But I know for sure the three of us will still be the hands-on. We'll still have that communication with you as well, because it's important. It's important.
Like yourself, Josh, I did go down the pink license route, but I was only on it for 5 weeks before I had my Part 3 test. So although I had that option, I didn't really utilize it as well as I could. And I was sponsored. I wasn't with a big school. So I had the option at the end of Part 3 to continue with that sponsor or to go independent. Now, for me, my first thought was I want to stay with somebody because I want to know that when I've had a bad lesson and, maybe I've struggled with teaching a certain student clutch control, one student could pick it up perfect, the next won't. Just being able to phone someone, I've tried this technique, I've tried that. What else can you give me some advice on how to do that? Having those conversations when you're first starting out is so important because that's how you're learning. You learn new tricks, you learn new ways of doing things. Because as we know, everyone learns differently. So having those different techniques is really, really valuable. So I think having that sponsor or having that franchise, having that person that you can reach out to, it's like a buddy support system. Just knowing that there's somebody that, can talk to you. I think we've all had a learner maybe that we dread to go and see maybe once a week. And just having that call with someone saying, I'm on my way to that learner and I'm really dreading it. I'm really dreading this. Like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this next hour and a half. And, sometimes just offloading is just as important as learning. So I think, that support system is really, really important.
You've just had me thinking about the situation I'm going through at the minute. Am I sounding all right? Or is that all gone all weird? It's echoing back to me. The standards check that I've got coming up, I'm really fortunate because I've got a network of people through the show primarily that I can talk to that are offering support and are kind of guiding me, which is allowing me to kind of find my structure. But I can now, from what you've just said there, I see why there's this fear around it as well. Because if someone's an independent driving instructor that's been on their own for 5, 6, 7 years, whatever, maybe not done much CPD, and then they get the envelope through the door, it's like, where do I turn to? Who do I go to? Who's a good trainer? How am I going to get through this? With now the added pressure that they've got their business on the line, depending on the result of it. So I didn't realize how fortunate I was that I've got people to talk to. And absolutely, people are going to need that. And not just for the first 6 months after qualifying, potentially a few years down the line, you get a challenging student or you get that, whatever they do, the invite for a standards check. Even just that is enough to make you want to have a team around you to help support and guide you through what's needed.
Yeah.
It's a great thing. And you've sold it to me. I'm all right. I've got my business, but I might be in touch in a few months, depending on how my standard check goes in March.
We'll get the paperwork ready, Josh.
We'll book in that interview. So do you have any other points that you'd like to raise or any other messages that you'd like to share with people? I've got some listeners or audience questions that I'd like to go through, but do you have any kind of final messages for anyone that's watching or listening?
I think what I'd add in is that we're not going to suit everyone, and we accept that. There are, we're looking for a specific instructor or specific set of instructors who are dedicated on their development, and if they're dedicated, we'll put in equal amount of dedication to help them get to where they want to be. And that for us is kind of the important thing. We know that we're not going to be suitable for everybody, and we don't expect to have hundreds of instructors. But if we can make better instructors, they'll help better pupils. and then we've got this knock-on effect again.
It's that domino effect, isn't it? And I would also like to add to that if anyone, you know, in particular from the training stage, that they're not sure, am I on the right track? Am I on the right path? Is, you know, am I being put down the right runway here? You know, we're happy to chat to people, and because education's key. Again, it's that knowledge building. It's not just that development, as Tom was saying, like with the ADI, that's the kind of the start of everything. But that first run that they do, you know, don't leave it to the last minute. If it's a case that you failed your part 3 or your part 2 on your second attempt, we all know you book it in, you go on hold 99.9% of the time. But you know this is your last chance. Don't wait. Pick up the phone.
The final bit as well for us is transparency.
Yeah,
definitely.
We want to be open and honest that trainee license isn't going to work for everyone. And, you know, signing people into a big, long contract isn't going to be for everyone. And so we will always be open and honest and give people our honest opinion and what the options are. Like we've said earlier, it's about giving people options. And if the best option is for people not to go down the trainee license, we're all for that.
And we'll still support them. We'll still give them the guidance they need. It's not a case you've got to stick with us, and you know, we're still here to help. We still want to see changes within the industry. So it's not just about us as Drive Up Training and staying with us as a brand. We want to see changes happening.
I love it. And you guys are starting that change. You're the change that we need.
Three musketeers.
Gonna take over one ADI at a time. I love it. So I've got some questions now. Do you mind if we go through some of these?
Sure.
Before we get on to listeners' questions, here is your discount code from the award-winning CPD providers, Knowledgeably Instructor Training. And you can use the code MSP10 for 10% off their client-centered Part 3 Standards Check in-person workshop. So that is code MSP10. I will get on with the first question. So Penny's question is, what's made you guys choose now to combine forces and develop your new venture?
That is a good question, and I'm happy to be absolutely honest. It wasn't something we really planned, was it? It just sort of happened. We started conversations about different things, about training and business management, and I suppose the term I would use is snowballed from there. And we are now in this situation or this position where we all think along the same lines, and it just made sense, didn't it? We just kind of thought, why not try it? What's the worst that can happen? If it doesn't succeed, we're still trainers, we're still business management, and we can still just train and trade under this name. Even if the goal that we've got doesn't succeed, we've still got avenues and options to do there. So it was a no-lose situation, really.
Mm-hmm.
I would just totally agree. It did snowball. We was, you know, from the first time we sort of met each other, like Kim and I with Tom, communications got more frequent and started building. And as you know, you just don't rock up and go, oh, hey, I've opened a driving school. This has kind of we've been like hiding behind the scenes, putting everything in place, making sure it's as exactly how we want it. And it's, you know, even working back before Kim and I became partners as Gates and Gibson, you know, it's that whole independent instructor thing. And to be able to work with people who think along the same mind setting as you, That can be hard to come by. And I can only speak for myself, but for me, I didn't get lucky once. I got lucky twice.
Beats me.
No, don't just be bringing me up later. I go, love you. Yeah, I don't think I got lucky once. I didn't get lucky twice. You know, I got lucky twice. Do I have any regrets? Absolutely not. Will this work? Absolutely yes. Because it's a company with an absolute difference that's putting the instructor at the forefront of their ADI/franchise. So that's me.
I hope that answers Penny's question.
Hopefully.
Absolutely. I love it. And that goes straight back to what we was talking about in the episode, kind of being the change. And for driving instructors that are maybe kind of, I want to do something, you don't have to have the end state in your mind right now. Just have these conversations and kind of let it grow with like-minded people, trusted people, and just do something. Just start somewhere and it will lead somewhere.
Mm.
Definitely.
I love it. Right, the next question. This one could be interesting. I like this one. If coaching, so we've got from Dave, if coaching is the be all and end all of driving instruction, how come fatality rates aren't falling as fast as they should, seeing as it's been around 10 years? That's the first part of the question. Once we've dealt with that one, we'll move on to the second part of his question.
I'll jump in there. I can only give my opinion on this. I'm still delivering training now to instructors who don't know what client-centered learning is. So it might have been in the industry for 12 plus years. That doesn't mean people have been doing it correctly. People don't know what they don't know. And even I'm still learning now, which I thoroughly enjoy. I'm still learning new things. And that for me is the biggest thing. It's been around for a long time. And in fact, I come from a sports coaching background, and I was told to leave all that behind when I trained. Now, I was trained in the old system in the PSTs, so you know it was slightly different to what we've got now. But this is part and parcel of it because people are sticking with what they've always done. They think maybe just asking a few questions is coaching. So if everybody was trained in a better system, if everybody had qualifications and understood coaching and what client-centered learning was, I do think it would make a difference. And until we do that, we're never going to know.
An answer I expected there from you, Tom. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, Tom's going to have this one.
I'm eager for the second part of the question now.
This one is, just as good. Also, if the head of the DVSA don't know about the GDE, what hope is there?
Again, actually, why are we waiting for DVSA? What's it to do with them? They're there to assess us. So one of the terms I often use in training is that when a trainee or an instructor goes for part 3 or a standards check, what they need to do is dumb it down for the examiner. Because if we've got far better qualifications than what they're trained in, bearing in mind, I spoke to somebody recently in DVSA and they said that in order to become an ADI examiner, they get about 6 weeks training, initial training. That's not a lot. So if I put 10 years worth, or let's put our package, 5 years worth of experience in all of that information, when you go for your standards check, all you're going to need to do is demonstrate those 17 competencies. But actually in a good lesson, there are 150 competencies that we need to be doing above what's in there. So you go for your part 3 of standards check, just dumb it down for them.
Well, that's changed my preparation for my standards check. Cheers, Tom.
No problem.
Hmm. Do you think the standards check is a limiting factor within our industry then?
Um, no, no, I don't think it should be seen as a limiting factor. I think it should just be like with anything. It's a bit like a job interview. You know, there are certain things that I would go and demonstrate on a job interview. But when I've got the job, well, there are other things that I would tend to go and do. And so the standards check is to demonstrate the minimum standards. Now, what we would like is for instructors to go in there and consistently be getting grade A, because that shows that we've reached the minimum standard for DVSA. But then we need to be pushing much past that. So how many times do we hear where trainees or instructors say, I failed by 1 mark, I got 30? And you say, well, actually, you could have got 51. So there's quite a few marks there you could get. And so if we can push past those boundaries and look at it as a stepping stone, I don't like the term tick box, but if we can look at it as a stepping stone to the right direction, it's like anything. Unfortunately, with situations that have happened, DVSA are struggling now to still do 45 minutes of a part 3 or a standards check. So that's probably not going to change anytime soon. So let's see it as it is. We've demonstrated we can do what they want to do, but actually they're limited in what they know. So let's push past it.
I would like to add to that a little bit, just because I see the standards check as something that makes you a little bit more accountable. It also gives you something to just refresh that actually I do know my stuff. So, you know, if you didn't have that standards check, that's somebody coming in to observe your lesson, 10, 20 years down the line, you'll still be sat there thinking, well, I hope I'm still doing good lessons. I hope I'm doing it right. Still nothing's changed. So I think it just makes us more accountable. I think it's good that it's in place, because it does have that structure to make you have to revise what you're doing, make you have to reflect on how your lessons are going, and the training that you're offering, and make sure that you are offering that service still to those pupils and teaching them the right way.
It's a great point. And I'm surprised at how infrequent the standards checks do come round. From my background and what I used to deliver the teaching, there was no teaching qualification or course that I had that lasted longer than 3 years. Some of them I was observed every 3 to 6 months. Some of them I had to go and fully re-qualify every 3 years. So that was on a course as if I'd never done it before, but I've been teaching it for 3 years. I still had to go and do the course again. So some great answers there. And again, I think it comes back to, let's stop looking for the DVSA. Let's look at what we're doing, put road safety at the front of our minds, and how can we develop those learners the best that we can. And that seems like a more attainable goal than let's change the opinion of the DVSA.
Agreed.
Well, thank you guys very much for joining. That is it for questions. I'll take the hit for that one. I was late posting it out. So maybe we'll get some follow-up questions. But what I will do is, if anyone's got any questions for these guys, and we'll leave the links in the description, all that good stuff. But if you want to leave a comment wherever you're watching or listening, and I can forward it on to the guys anyway, so we can get some feedback. But thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's been great hearing about what you're working on, and I'm going to be following and seeing what you guys get up to. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks for having us on.
Thank you for having us.
No problem at all. Well, thank you for listening or watching, and thank you to our sponsors, Knowledgeably Instructor Training, award-winning CPD providers. And I would like to also mention Talking Send with Dr. Julia Malkin, MBE. That is a membership on Patreon where you can sign up and you can access a number of videos to help you understand your neurodiverse learners. So that can be found on Patreon. or on Facebook. And if you're signing up, use code MSP25 for 25% off your first month. Thank you.